Welcome to Frequency Matters, the RF and Microwave Update. I'm Pat Hindle, and I'm here with my co-host Gary Lerude. In this episode, we thought we'd take a look at the February satellite and radio communications issue. This was actually moved up from August to better match the Mobile World Congress and satellite shows, so I think it's a better fit for the year.
Yeah, the timing is much better.
So the cover feature is very interesting. Some authors from Ericsson take a look at how GaN amplifiers are penetrating the microwave point-to-point radio market. This was one that you had worked on. Great story, shows how efficiency is greatly improved by using the GaN amplifiers. And there were kind of two factors that contributed to them adopting it. One was the adoption of Doherty configuration, which is widely used in base stations, but not necessarily point-to-point. And the other was a wide availability of the high-frequency GaN devices themselves, which in the beginning the gate lengths were longer, so that the operating frequencies were lower.
Right.
So this is really a big impact, and I think we'll see a lot of penetration of GaN in this market and the base station market. It'll be a big year.
Yeah, definitely. And then we have a couple of articles related to mobile devices, the handsets. One is by Todd Gillenwater, who is the CTO for the mobile segment at Qorvo, and he talks about the evolution of the smartphone and some of the things that are going on there. So carrier aggregation, what are the implications of that for interference, for isolation, for power management? Also, given the number of bands keep increasing, ideally you'd want an antenna for every band, but that's not feasible given the space constraints, so that opens the door to antenna tuning. And then, of course, he talks about the tremendous path to integration in the phone. So that's quite interesting. And then kind of a complementary article to that, we have Joe Madden from Mobile Experts has written about envelope tracking and what's driving that. And basically, as the frequency bands go higher, the propagation isn't as good, particularly through walls. So the power amplifier in the handset needs to put out additional power. Of course, that creates problems with thermal management. So enter envelope tracking, which is a good way to improve the power added efficiency. So Joe does a nice job of kind of describing the rationale for adopting envelope tracking and kind of where it is in the industry.
Yeah, I hope to catch up with him at Mobile World Congress.
Yeah.
He has some great reviews of the markets.
Yeah. So how about products in the issue? What's our featured product this month?
Yeah, so the MVP this month was CST Studio Suite 2017. And the updates to the software greatly improved the range of applications that it addresses now. And it had both front-end and back-end improvements. They address the better simulation of components, but also the components within a system. So it does both now. It's much wider application-oriented. So it's a good update. This is a good time of year. You get all the software updates for the year. We'll be doing one next episode, too.
Right, that's right.
How about news?
Well, turning to news, a couple of really interesting things that I saw. First, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. basically told Infineon and Cree that the deal to have Infineon acquire Wolfspeed is not going to fly. They consider that to be a national security risk to the United States. And probably even more damning was the statement they don't really see a way to mitigate the risks. It was interesting, Infineon kind of laid it out like that. Cree seemed to be a little bit more optimistic that they could find a way
around it
to make the deal go. But it's interesting because one piece of that deal is basically the silicon carbide substrate business at Cree, which also does the epitaxial layer. And as you well know, it's in that epitaxial layer that you determine the power density and the reliability of the GaN device. So it's pretty sensitive.
Yeah, and the DoD has funded a lot of Cree developments back when Wolfspeed was Cree.
Right, exactly. The other article that's interesting, we talked some months ago about Project AirGig from AT&T.
Right, yeah.
They updated their news on that with a release saying that they're close to negotiating 2 field trials, presumably with utilities. They said one would be in the U.S. and presumably one somewhere in the other part of the world. And they want to have these in place and underway by the fall. And this is interesting, as near as I can tell, because they're very specific about the language they use. This is a surface mode propagation along a power line of millimeter wave frequencies. And it would eliminate the need to bury cable or lay fiber, string fiber along poles if it works. And now if they can do field trials, they can actually see what the propagation characteristics will be, in rain or like we just had snow. Yeah. Although I think if they do it in the summer, they'll have to go south of the equator to get snow. Anyway, what did you see for news items this time?
So in the news in the area of 5G, IBM and Ericsson announced what is reported to be the first silicon millimeter wave phased array module operating at 28 gigahertz. And this is very interesting. It has 4 MMIC devices and 64 dual polarized antenna elements, all in a less than 3-inch square module. So very compact, and I think this module with the dual polarization is able to support both simultaneous transmit and receive 2 beams, so it's twice as much capacity as a normal module would be. I think we'll see a lot of these coming out. 28 gigahertz is really heating up for Mobile World Congress.
Right, that's a pretty impressive result.
Yeah, and also noteworthy was Qualcomm and TDK announced the finalization of their joint venture, which is RF360 Holdings. And this will allow Qualcomm to supply both RF filters and complete modules into an array of applications from automotive to IoT to smartphones. If we remember back, RF360 was kind of meant to be the mid to lower tier smartphone solution, and it never really seemed to catch on that big. I think it was adopted by some platforms, but not a lot. But I think this really will allow them to expand into applications where it fits very well. Maybe go head to head with like a Murata or somebody like that.
Yeah, I remember the original announcement. They seemed to be focused only on silicon type implementations, and of course they didn't have the filter piece. Now with the EPCOS filter piece, and then I've also saw in one of the releases they talked about gallium arsenide as well. So I would think they'll be a good competitor to Murata, to Skyworks, to Qorvo.
Yeah.
It ought to be pretty interesting here.
What's funny is gone kind of shifted from the amplifier to being filter constrained. Now the filter is kind of the critical element that you have to have.
Exactly. So I think as far as travel, you're off to Mobile World Congress, you said?
Yep, it's pretty soon, but I did just recently attend DesignCon in Santa Clara, California.
Yeah.
So that's a high-speed digital design event, but a lot of microwave companies exhibit there. So mostly the PCB and connector companies are all there, and also the simulation and test companies. So this was actually the first event that the Signal Integrity Journal attended. So we have a complete wrap-up of the event, including videos and pictures, and it's on both signalintegrityjournal.com and microwavejournal.com.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive conference there. It was 100 sessions, 14 tracks, so it's always fun to see what's going on in the high-speed digital world with that event.
So you're back. You're back just in time to unpack your suitcase and repack for Mobile World
pretty
Congress.
much, yeah.
Well, after Mobile World Congress, I'm heading to Washington for Satellite, and I'm interested to see what's going on there. I was there a couple years ago, and a lot has changed. We I have seen a lot of announcements from SpaceX and OneWeb and others, so it'll be good to kind of get a feel for the pulse of the industry.
Yeah, and also please note that EDICon China registration is now open. So
that's right.
April in Shanghai until April 15th, it's free registration to the conference. So take advantage of that at ediconchina.com.
So we also have another opportunity for you. If your company is interested in sponsoring Frequency Matters, we're looking for a couple of sponsorships, and we'd like for them to be long-term. As you know, we generally cover what's in our magazine. We cover the topical news, events, and so forth. And it's also a good opportunity. As you see, we often do executive interviews, talk about new products, and so it's a good way to get your company's name in front of our audience. So give that some consideration. And I think that's a wrap.
It is.
So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.